Hello, everybody. I am the proactive caregiver, and I specialize in educating others on how to be proactive by empowering you, the caregiver. Because if you cannot take care of yourself, then you cannot take care of your loved one. Today, I want to go a little bit deeper into just that concept. Last episode, we had Kaylee Johnson who explained several different ways of self-care, but I know so many caregivers, including myself, that still struggle to create and maintain self-care regimens. Let's get into that a little bit more. So today I want to take a closer look and actually discuss what is it that keeps us as caregivers from actually creating these self-care regimens. I know many of us the first thing that comes to mind is we're just too tired. I get it. But a lot of the reasons we tell ourselves that we cannot commit to self-care would actually help with that fatigue if we just start one thing. One small thing. Last episode, Kaylee talked about several. She went over, mental, emotional, physical, social, spiritual, practical, and professional self-care. So you can see there are several different ways. But with all these different ways, why do we struggle? Well, I tend to believe this struggle is because our heart isn't in it most of the times. And I understand this now because when I reflect on the early years with Mom, she wasn't always in this lazy, fatigued, withdrawn, no desire for life kind of way. She actually had this go-getter, adventurous, high energy that was loving and looking forward to creating in so many different ways, whether it was her flower bed or the doll houses with all the miniature stuff, or doing things with grandchildren. She wasn't always lacking in that area. So when I thought about it more, when was it when she actually started to break this self-care regimen? I looked at it in a way of where was her heart space? Because now I understand how strong our heart and the energy that we give off and receive can actually be. So back in the early years, Mom actually had this go-getter energy that turned into a broken heart. And once that broken heart energy dominated her way of life, she slowly and gradually lost the desire to actually do things for herself. She still struggled and tried to do things outside of herself for others because as a teacher, she had to keep going. She had a fiscal school year. She had students. She had others. She had us. So looking inward just wasn't the thing because what I learned to do is to deflect and avoid and distract myself because sometimes that heart space isn't comfortable to be in. Sometimes we don't want to feel all the things all the time. But just like Mom, I learned from her to avoid the emotions that were coming up from all these life events and life activities that just left me wondering, why? Why do I need to do this? Why do I have to do it this way? Why is this an expectation of mine? I think caregivers get into this space of giving, and not practicing receiving or even turning it and giving it to themselves because their heart isn't in it. It's easy to say, When I'm done at the end of the day, the first thing I want to do is just sit on the couch and watch TV. I just want to unplug and stop feeling like I'm going, and just not think about anything, not have to put any mental energy in it, not even feel anything emotionally. I just want to observe what's going around and not have to respond. But that is that deflective, that is the avoidance, that is the distractions that I find comfort in many of the times, because if I allowed myself to get into that heart space, I actually took time to cry and feel what's happening. Where is the direction that mom's health was going? Knowing where it was heading, and then feeling, oh no, it's getting there faster and I'm not ready. But ironically, by giving to her, it was a distraction and it helped me not feel what was happening, not feel these changes that were coming about, not feel that I was enough to give the care that she deserved and that I was doing as much as I could within my limitations, within my boundaries. So when we get into that heart space, there's a difference in energy. There's a difference in what we receive and what we give out. If you find yourself being frustrated with your loved one, they're not doing what you're asking, they're not doing what they need to be doing, or what you feel they need to be doing, take a break and do this check-in to see, where is my heart right now? What is my energy? The reason I say this is because when I went over some more recent stats that came out from AARP, it was eye-opening and shocking and perfect proof that the caregivers are not leaning into self-care as much as they need to. So here's interesting facts. Back in 2017, this actual data came out in 2019, was estimated that the value of caregiving, all the hours that caregivers gave in, was up to $470 billion worth of care if it was given towards wages. More recently, let's say in 2021, the report was done that that number actually increased to $600 billion of care that caregivers are giving. So based off of 38 million caregivers in the US alone, these caregivers are providing at least 18 hours of care. Now, while they're doing this, and we all know that at least 18 is on the very low end because majority of us are living this. So we're giving far more than 40 hours a week of care to our loved one. And in the process of doing that, how many of those hours are turning into self-care for you? Think about that. So as the time goes, our heart space energy, all of this care that we're giving out, we're depleting ourselves. We're depleting our energy. We're not replenishing it as often. We are in this mindset of, I have to do. Well, one of the things that I am continuing to learn is we are not human doings. We are human beings. And in this moment of learning how to be a human, how to feel our way through life, how to continue caring in the best way we possibly can without losing ourselves, without harming ourselves, without depleting ourselves, is to actually lean into this self-care. So with that in mind, I want to share a quick story. I had a moment years ago that it was time to cleanse the space, the practical self-care, giving things away to get rid of some stagnant energy, basically. So I created a box full of books that I was no longer needing, reading, wanting, just collecting dust. I took this box to Half Price Books. I was going to sell this box of books. And after I handed the books off to the attendant, I knew I was going to have some time to wait in the store while they were going to assess what the value was for these books. I turn over to the aisles of all the many other books that really didn't need to replace what I just gave away with more. but I wanted to pass some time. So I stood in front of the aisles and just tried to energetically sense, what does my heart want? Where can my heart lead me? I went to an aisle that first came to mind as go this way, go here. Across the about 4 or 5 rows of books, I went into a scientific area. Okay. So as I stood in that area, I kind of did a 360 within the one like horseshoe row that it ended up being. And as I stood there, I thought, okay, what does my heart desire? What do I want to read? And the moment I stopped and pulled the first book that was directly in front of me, happened to be, and I'm not kidding, Joe Dispenza's book of How to Change the Habit of Being Yourself. I took this book, and as I stood there reading what seemed to be 20 minutes of waiting for my books to be assessed, it was apparent to me this was divinely orchestrated. I needed to read this, and it was coming home with me. As I went through this book, I realized there are so many things we do as caregivers, our routines. It's the doing. We become that human that's doing things all the time because those are the things that give us purpose. Those are the things that make us feel good. Those are the things that distract us from life. If I'm going to change the habit of being myself, then I really had to come into this safe space, this realization that I can't think all the time. I can't analyze things all the time. And as a Virgo, that's hard. I needed to feel things more often. I needed to experience life in a different way. Feeling things in a different way started for me when self-care became important. Once I started this new routine, these regimens of setting the alarm clock just a little bit earlier so I had enough time to get up, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just a little bit earlier so I got to sit down and do a quick meditation. This routine consistently built and built to where I got 30 minutes of meditation because the more I did it, the more I wanted to do it, the more I looked forward to do it, the more I acknowledged this is for me. This is good for my mind, my heart, and my soul. Then I started adding yoga. Again, 30 minutes of meditation, 5 minutes of yoga, and then it turned into 10 minutes. And eventually I was doing 30 minutes of meditation and 30 minutes of yoga. Again, the more I did this, the more I wanted to do it, the more I needed to do this, the more I craved this time for myself. I kept piling and adding on to this. I started leading more into the mental self-care, the emotional self-care, the social self-care. Being present with others was easier. I didn't feel the burden as much that I couldn't share with others what was happening in my world of caregiving that they wouldn't understand. So I was feeling like I had to keep this to myself. I started to express myself more. I started to experience others in different ways and understanding, wow, they're needing some heart space self-care. They're needing to shift their energies too. So now I'm noticing how good it felt for me inside and seeing with others how they're lacking in it. And if they just gave themselves, like I did, those few moments a day, what a difference they could experience. Now I recognize that self-care is not only not selfish for me to do, but necessary. These are the areas that change and continue to change my life because the more self-care I give to myself, the stronger I feel in heart and mind, and the more I have to give back to others. Not just as a caregiver in my home, but to others in general, everywhere. I now feel like I've become the pebble in the pond. Even though I used to feel like I was just a small speck of sand, I couldn't affect or change anything in the world. But now, because I give to myself, I now feel like I'm that pebble in the pond. So when I throw myself out there into social moments, I am now creating ringlets of energetic reactions to others to show how good it can be, how wonderful it feels to give to yourself. So when I get those compliments now that you look great, you look like you're glowing, you look so happy, what do you do? Where do you go? What products you use? I just remind them it is just as much what I do for myself on the inside as what I do for others on the outside. So I want to challenge you as you're going throughout your days and you are feeling so down energetically, emotionally, however that mindset that's making you feel low. Stop and think, why do I feel so low? Let that inner 5-year-old come out and do the little why, until you can stop asking those questions and feel like you have an inner knowing of, oh, that's why. Why do I feel this way? Maybe you're hungry. Maybe you're thirsty. Well, I ate and I had some coffee. Why do I still feel this way? Well, maybe what I put into my body didn't give me the energy that I needed. And I thought I was hungry for that, but it didn't satiate the hunger. Why am I still hungry? Well, if I ate this food and I drank this beverage and I'm still feeling hungry, is it food that I'm actually craving? Why am I feeling these emotions? Well, these things that are happening around me are stressful, and I feel like I'm lacking in attention, or maybe I feel like I'm lacking in a sense of peace. Why do I not feel peaceful? Because I feel like what's happening around me is pulling me in a different direction that I was prepared for, and I feel like I'm losing control. Why do I need to be in control? Because if I can control everything around me, then I can stop the arrows that pierce my heart, or at least feel like I can stop them before they pierce me. So this is a process of elimination. This is giving yourself time to actually think this through. And the more you realize that those cravings that we have for food or beverages may not be a craving because you're actually hungry in your stomach, but you're hungry emotionally. And when you lean into this heart space and you become more aware of it, then you're able to go from this mental logic self of doing, into this emotional heart space to feel. And sometimes feeling life is not nice. It's not comfortable. It's the last thing we want to do. But most of the time, it's what we need to do. And because caregivers are experiencing burnout and other depression and just moments of wanting to give up, we have to stop this routine of not giving to ourselves and start becoming selfish. Yes, I'm saying this. Caregivers, you need to become selfish and give to yourself for a change. Because if you don't stop and give to yourself, then who are you now? If you're gone, and unable to continue giving to your loved one? Who's going to step in your place when you have burnt out? I am actually encouraged when I'm finding time to give into those emotional and mental and spiritual self-care, where I'm drawn to read more books and experience life in a different way. I'm actually reminded that even Jesus years ago had to step away from the crowds, had to step away and take a break. Even he knew that he needed rest and he needed to recuperate before he went back to continue serving and giving. We want to give as much as we can to our loved ones, but we have to remember giving to ourselves and giving to ourselves first. That is not selfish. That is actually a plan to be able to continue to give in better ways, healthier ways. Because let's face it, we're always going to be giving in some form or fashion, whether our loved one lives longer or they are at their end of their journey. We still have to continue giving to ourselves in the end. And that in that process of giving, you are learning how to take care of your temple that you've been blessed with, how to enjoy life in new and interesting different ways. And by giving to yourself, you're also showing the younger generations how important it is and what it looks like, so that they too can continue learning how to care for themselves. And the tradition changes, the cultural shift takes place. We no longer have to rely on this process, this system of government and healthcare and insurance and this and that. We don't need that. We need to take care of this heart, which in turn takes care of the brain. And it's all balanced through the gut, but it starts by tuning in and being aware of where our heart space really and truthfully is. I want to wrap this with one quick and hopefully memorable acronym. And I'm going to thank Erin before I give this. She'll know. So we want to keep life easy and make it more enjoyable. So we are going to kiss more often. Keep it simple, silly. Although she might have used a different word, we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to keep growing and learning as caregivers, because the more you build awareness, the more you create your self-care regimen, the more you're going to want it, the more you're going to understand and know the need for it, the more you're going to fight for yourself. Thank you for joining in today. I hope you found this episode gave you a little bit more food for thought. And for other episodes like this, you can go to theproactivecaregiver.com. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care. Be proactive.